This town of Boston has a history. It is not an accident, not a windmill or a railroad station or a crossroads tavern. I do not speak with any fondness, with the language of coldest history, when I say that Boston commands attention as the town which was appointed in the destiny of nations to lead the civilization of North America. Ralph Waldo Emerson. As Emerson so alludes, Boston is one of America's most prominent cities, filled with over 700,000 humans capable of intellect that will shape our city's future. Today, I present to you a pressing issue, not so unfamiliar to you, yet seemingly intangible, the topic of climate change in Boston.
It's such a big issue that's really scary. That it's easy to say, well, climate change, we don't even know for sure if it's going to happen, and if it does, it's going to happen in the future, and I just don't want to deal with it.
This is Dr. Ellen Douglas.
I'm Ellen Douglas. I have a PhD and a professional engineering license, and I'm on the faculty of the School for the Environment. I'm a hydrologist and a water resource engineer, and I deal a lot with sea level rise and climate change.
When asked if she had entered her career to pursue climate change, her response was,
No, I'm a hydrologist. What's a hydrologist got to do with sea level rise?
So she started mapping, and the results were pretty surprising.
We put out this report that showed these flood maps of what the 100-year flood could look like in Boston by 2100. And, Atlantic Avenue is flooded, the Back Bay is flooded, and everybody's like, whoa, maybe we should pay attention to this.
I also had the opportunity to interview another prominent figure on Boston's climate change scene.
Yeah, my name is Paul Kirshen. I'm a professor in the School for the Environment at UMass Boston, and I'm also the academic director of the Sustainable Solutions Lab here.
Like Dr. Douglas, Dr. Kirshen has spent a good deal of time talking about water.
We could have minor street flooding twice a day because our high tides are just going to be a lot higher because of sea level rise.
While you might not live in a flood-prone area, chances are you'll have to deal with it.
If the building is flooded, they may not be able to get into work. So some of the mass transit routes like rail and MBTA, they go through low areas. Okay, so major rainstorm or coastal flood, they may not be able to get in.
Even now, there is flooding in Boston, especially during the king tide, or the very highest tide in a year. Entire streets, such as Morrissey Boulevard, close, leaving thousands of commuters unable to leave or get into the city. So what is the expected sea level rise in Boston?
1 to 2 feet by mid-century, and 3 to 7 or more feet by the end of the century.
It's a pretty tough concept to grasp, so here's a general idea. Back in 1635, Boston's coastline would be unrecognizable to you. Around 1820, Bostonians began extending the coastline, primarily with sand and gravel, to add land to the growing city, which is what we see today.
And people look at our flood maps and they say, oh, look, it's beginning to look just like Boston used to look before all that filled. In some ways, the ocean is kind of getting its revenge for losing all that space. Everybody's impacted by the weather. Everybody's going to be impacted by climate change.
So, who will be the most immediately impacted by sea level rise?
Any neighborhood of Boston that's on the coast. East Boston, Charlestown, North End, South End, South Boston, Dorchester.
There are also many other consequences of climate change to consider.
I think we're already seeing a lot of impacts from extreme weather events and extreme precipitation.
In fact, Boston is home to North America's oldest continually operating weather observatory, the Blue Hills Observatory, which shows just that. Most notably, since the 1960s, Boston has seen increased rain, aside for the last few years, which have brought extreme droughts. And with droughts come heat.
One of them is going to be heat stress, certainly.
So basically the entire summer above 90 by the end of the century if we follow the higher emission scenario, which is like living in, Mississippi.
Dr. Kirshen addresses the ideological change in perceiving climate change risks.
There's been this shift from emphasis on sort of impacts on physical and environmental systems to those impacts, but also how those impacts translate to impacts on people and the distribution of those impacts on people.
Why do people find themselves in these vulnerable areas?
Just because of economic reasons, they live in areas where the rent is lower. So it's areas that are more vulnerable to flooding. Many of their employment activities are very much place-based. So they have to get to the place where they work to earn income. Whereas many white-collar professions, we can work from home. If you have a lower income job like working in a hotel or in a factory or something like that, you have to be there to work. So if you can't get there, you're going to lose income. Many of our mass transit systems, particularly in cities, go through tunnels, and tunnels are going to flood.
Electrical equipment does not like salt water.
Despite the challenges, there is hope.
It takes a certain amount of courage to face a problem as big as climate change and say, okay, I believe it's real. I know that I have to do something. What should I do? When we have challenges, that's when the innovation comes out.
I mean, the world has never dealt with a problem quite like climate change before. So we need new ways of thinking about it.
Everybody has a role in the solution. We need to feel hopeful because we can do it. We can deal with it.